Hey friends, have a seat and relax. I'm going to tell you another God story, and this is a good one. I mean, I think they're all good ones, but this one is really special. It's about my son, Shay. So, you've heard the term cover someone in prayer. Well, I took that very literally. Well, my son Shay, my oldest son, has dystonia, and four of his cousins also have it, and several of us adults. It's a movement disorder. It's genetic in our family. It can be from an injury or from medication, but if you get a minute, look it up. It's something that's good to know about because it is pretty unknown, and even in the medical field. So if you get a chance, look it up. It's called dystonia, and it is a movement disorder. So it causes involuntary movements, spasms, a lot of pain for some of them. And after exhausting all treatments like medication and things like that, Botox, they do DBS. If any of you know what DBS is, will you put it in the comments? Just tell me that you know what it is. I'd be curious to know who knows about it and why you know about it. So DBS is deep brain stimulation, and Shay and a couple of the others had it done in Gainesville, Florida. One or two had it done in New York City. Shay had it done the second time in New York City. So what they do is they implant probes into the area of your brain that controls movement, and it's connected by a wire under their skin to two stimulators in their chest, or one. They're doing it with one now, and it's come a long way in the 20 years or how many ever years it's been. No, well, yeah, I guess 20. They turn it on after a certain amount of time. It takes a while. You have to, change all the settings. It's a very long process. And the point is to interrupt the wrong message that the brain is sending the body. So for some people it works, some people it doesn't. Some people get a little bit of benefit and some just don't get anything. So back to the story. We were in Gainesville, and I think it was, let's see, what year was it? Shay was 11, so 2012, right? Or 10. Oh my gosh, I can't remember. I think it was 10 actually. Yeah, it was 10. So they do part of the surgery 1 month, and then or at one time, and then you have to wait and go back and get the rest done, the other part. So they do this part, and then they do this part separately. Well, in between the two, we came back to New York, and Shay had a really, really, really hard time. He had what they call a dystonic storm, and they've all experienced it. And it's just constant movement. It won't stop, and it's extremely debilitating and scary and just horrible. So we ended up in the hospital in Rochester to try to control it. They couldn't do it here. They were too afraid to give him enough meds to calm it down because he might lose his airway, and he was only 11, so they didn't have what they needed here to take care of that, which is really scary. Even now, when we need to go to the hospital, they don't really have anything they can do for him because they don't deal with dystonia here. So Rochester is where we were, and he got a little bit better. I mean, well enough that we could go to Florida. It was a very long trip. We were all in the RV, and several of the other kids were, well, at least one was getting the same thing done the same day. When we got there, it was crazy, a very crazy time. So we got there, and the next day it was time for him to have a CAT scan. The CAT scan is to map the brain so that they know when they put the halo on. I'm sure you all know what that is. You see people with it when they break their neck. Well, they use that to stabilize their head while they're doing the surgery because they have to be awake for a portion of it. And horrible, right? Traumatizing for the patient, but he was waiting for the CAT scan, and he was just, I don't know how to describe it. I could never show you the movement, but he couldn't stop moving, and it was really bad. His movements were very bad, and you can't go into a CAT scan moving around like that. And so they would normally give him something to relax him, like Ativan is usually what they gave him. So it was getting closer and closer, and they never brought it in. So I went out to the nurse and I said, he's going to need Ativan if they're coming in a couple minutes. I mean, I don't know how I said it. Hopefully I said it nicer than that. But I was really getting worried. I'm like, it's going to take a while to work. I know how this goes, especially on him. It would take a while. So she said, oh my gosh, we didn't get the Ativan. I was like, what? So she came back in a few minutes later and she said, I ordered it. It's coming, but they're on their way up to get him. Well, I said to her, why even bother? So I started praying. I was like, Lord, you know the plan here. And at this time, I was very close to the Lord. So it wasn't like my first story where I didn't know him and I didn't know he knew me. But I knew he would come through, and I just knew there was going to be a way. Well, they were all kind of freaking out. Like, okay, now we can't do this. He's not going to be able to have the surgery. He's scheduled for surgery. It was very tense in there. So I just walked away from everybody and I just stayed on the side and prayed. And I said, Lord, just tell me what to do. I will do anything. I would lay down my life right now if he could get this surgery, because I thought it was the answer. It wasn't, by the way, but at the time we didn't know that. So, oh my gosh, it was so stressful. So we left I think it was 5th or 6th floor. It was up there a ways. And, the what are they called? Like the aides, they came to get him. They came with a stretcher. They got him. And he's just moving all over and going crazy. And they're looking at me and I'm like, I didn't say anything because it was just me and God at that point. And I mean, literally, I did not talk to anybody. I didn't look at anybody. You couldn't even talk to me probably. I was so upset with the thought that he might not get his surgery after everything we did driving down there, which was really hard. He was in bad shape to drive 20 some hours, even in an RV. But I just kept praying. And so when we got to the elevator, so from his room to the elevator, I just dropped myself on him, my entire body. I didn't get on the stretcher, but practically. And I just laid over him. And I was like, talk about covering someone in prayer. I'm covering him head to toe. And I just prayed and prayed and prayed and prayed and believed in that elevator. We get down to the floor near the first floor. So it was a ways, it took a while. And we got out and he was sleeping, snoring. I don't mean just, dozed off. He was out. And it wasn't because of the Ativan. They weren't able to give it to him. God just put him out and said, he's having this surgery. It's meant to be. So I just kept, even though he was snoring, I just kept on him. And we had quite a long walk to the surgical center. And all the way there, people were laughing and pointing because he was snoring really loud. And I was saying, God did that. God did that. My God did that. I just kept telling everybody, God did that. God did that. It was so amazing. And when we got to the surgical center, he woke up. He was back into the horrible movements, but they took him in and sedated him and did the surgery. So the point is, even when it looks like there's absolutely no chance this is going to work out, there is a chance. And you've got to believe it and receive it. You can't just say, oh, God, take care of this. No, you have to say it knowing that he's going to, that he wants to. Not everything is going to work out that way. Absolutely not. But sometimes you just know. And I just felt like, lay on him, just cover him in prayer, lay down your life for him, and he will get his surgery. And he did. So thank you, God, for that. Let me tell you a little bit about what happened a few days later. And it's more of God. It is definitely more of how he puts us where we need to be, even when it looks like we're in the wrong place. And this is for sure a story about being in the right place. So he has a surgery and we're in the hospital, and I think overnight is all they kept him. And my nephew had it the same day, so they were both ready to go home, I guess. Well, we were trying to get him out, and he, into the wheelchair, and he was out of it. I mean, comatose. And they were like, well, he did just have brain surgery. It could just be that. It's traumatic, and blah, blah, blah. And my heart, my mind, my instincts were like, something's not right. Because we couldn't even wheel him in the wheelchair. He was just out. Oh, I'm sorry. So we get down to the first floor, we're waiting, my dad picks us up, and I'm like, something doesn't seem right, So we just went along, and my mama heart was just like, don't. We were leaving, we were going back to New York. So we're in the RV, and we're going back to New York, and we're driving, and my dad, I think we were about an hour out, and I was like, Dad, I think we better turn around, because we had been debating, should we turn around or what? And I said, I think we better. Something isn't right. He's not waking up at all, like at all. And this was an hour or so later. And he said, well, I don't remember if he said, let's just go a little further, or let's just chance it, or I said it. I don't remember. But we did. We decided just to chance it. So we're driving. I'm sitting next to him. He's still out. He starts having some things that I don't want to share on here because it could be humiliating to him. But he was not okay. He was not okay. So I don't know what time of night. It was sometime in the night, dark. We were in Pennsylvania. And I don't remember the name of the town, but it was a very small town. And my dad had to pull over because we thought he was dying. He couldn't do anything. He couldn't drink. It was like he was just gone. And I wasn't hysterical because that's just not how I get. But inside I was like, oh no, we're not going to go through all this and then I'm going to lose him. So I'm like, God, what do we do? What do we do? Tell me what to do. It was so scary. So we pulled over. Now there's all of us in the RV. There were probably 10 of us. And everyone had to, just go along with what was happening. So we pulled over and called 911. And they were there so fast. And the state troopers came. And he said, is he having a seizure? And I was like, no, tried to explain what it was, but of course nobody knows what it is. He said, I don't think we should take him to the local hospital. I think we should take him to Hershey, which is 45 minutes away, but I think he needs the neuro center there. Hershey has one of the best neuro departments you could ever ask for. They do neurosurgery there. And that was such a blessing that we could get there, because if they had taken him to the local hospital, I don't know what they would have done. I don't think they could have helped him. When we got to the Hershey Medical Center, they took him right in, all the way right to the back. And I'm sitting there by myself because I went in the ambulance with him and my family wasn't there yet. So I started crying, like, what is going to happen? They thought maybe he had a bleed, because that's one of the risks with this surgery. They thought he had a brain bleed. And I was like, no, and I was just praying, and I was by myself, and I was crying, and I was like, God, what do I do? I was always felt so alone, even if people were with me, because it was up to me to take care of him and make sure he was okay. And he wasn't. So they finally came out and said, no, he did not have a brain bleed. They did a CAT scan. We don't know what's going on. So the head of neurology, who was, I don't know his name, I wish I did, I would give him creds if he's even still alive, but he came down, sat in the room with me before my parents got there, before anybody got there, and he said, let's go over everything. So we started going over what he had done, which he was very familiar with, started going over how long it had been, when were his last meds, blah, blah, blah. And when we got to the meds, I realized what happened. He had been overdosed. He had been given 5 times the amount of one of the meds. I'm not going to say it. And 5 times the amount, and for 5 doses. He was completely overdosed. And I just burst into tears because it was my fault. Well, I felt like it was my fault. Because before the surgery, you meet with about 110 people, seemed like, and every one of them asks you what's the medication, how many, what's the dose, blah, blah, blah. You go through all of that. And by the last one, I was like, don't you guys cross-reference? I mean, I have to go through all this again? And they were like, yes, but we just have to do this to be sure. So I felt very sure with what was going on. Well, when he came out of the surgery, which was a very difficult surgery, it lasted 3 times the amount of time it should have taken, and he was in bad shape. And I walk in and he has blood dripping down here. He's crying. So as I walk in to see him after 12 hours, and it was supposed to be 3, 4 maybe, the nurse asked me how much of this medication he gets. And at that point I was like, I need to get to my son. I don't know. We have to know. She said, we have to know. I was like, I honestly don't know. I can't think. I just want to get over there. So I got over to him and I was, trying to comfort him. And I text my sister, do you remember how much blah, blah, blah Shay takes? And she was like, no, because her son was having surgery too. So I just couldn't remember. And I told her a number. Well, it was wrong. It was 5 times what he should have gotten. And they just went with it. They didn't question it. And if you knew what it was, and if you were a nurse, I would think you would say, wow, that's a lot for a young boy. But he is very big. He was very big. He is very big for his age. So they might not have even realized he was only 11 years old. He looked like he was 14. Oh, so that's what it was. And the entire time that we were in New Jersey, or in Hershey, it was only like for a few more hours. They got him stable and everything was fine. And we were able to leave. But I felt guilt. There's no guilt like mom guilt or parent guilt. I could not believe that I let that happen. And I felt like I almost killed him. It was horrible. So when we got out of there, he was insistent that we go to Toys R Us and buy this specific thing for his brother and this other specific thing for his cousin. After everything he just went through, that's what he wanted to do. I was so just exhausted emotionally. We had to go to Toys R Us. So my dad, he's a gem. Both of my parents, they went to every surgery with every one of these kids. So not only were they worried about the grandchildren, they were worried about us, their kids, as parents having to go through this and all the crazy stuff that happened. Because my sisters, if they ever get to tell their stories, they all have stories just as God-filled. So we were able to get all the stuff in the RV, the new ride-on toys we bought, and we got home and he was fine. But that was scary. And when I went to pay our bill, which was very high, the copay, I called. I hadn't gotten a bill, so I called to say, hey, I got to start paying on this. It's going to take me a while to pay it off. And she said, oh, you have a zero balance. So I don't know if that was just God's doing or if the hospital decided we made a mistake. Let's just clear this up and this is how we'll compensate her or them. I don't know. I just know God did it. So that was good enough for me. So that is my story for Shay. And he's 27 now. He actually could be having surgery again. And I hope I don't have any stories to tell you about that. So that's how God showed up in that situation. And I just love sharing that. I love talking about God. It's not that I love talking about myself or my life. I like telling you about God and what he does, what he has done, and what I know he still will do. And I'm counting on that. And I'm ready to receive it. So I hope you are too. And I hope you enjoyed this story. And I will have another one soon. Bye. There was another part to this story that I left out. So I've decided to add that to the end, and it'll all make sense to you, but I just didn't want to leave out how God worked in this particular segment. So at the end of the video, you'll see that part. So thanks for watching. So after the surgery, we were finally going back upstairs, and I was in his room waiting, and it just so happened, and I don't mean just so happened, I mean it happened because God made it happen. The techs who took him down one of them was also the one who brought him back up. Well, if you remember, I said I never even talked to anybody. I didn't look. I had no idea that she was the same one that took him down. So after they got him in his bed and everything, and I was just ready to sit down, she came over and she said, Mom, can I talk to you? And I was like, yeah, sure. I didn't have any idea what was going on. She said, I'm the one that was here earlier, and I saw you. I saw what you did. And I was like, I thought she meant like forgot the Ativan or something. I don't know. And she said, I saw you pray and I saw him go to sleep. She said, God wants me to tell you, you are a good mom and you are doing all the things that need to be done, and just keep relying on him. You're doing a great job. And I cried my eyes out. So that was the best part after the surgery, because from there on, there's another story.